Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Dawn Michael, and today we're going to talk about fetishes and basically the origin of where the term came from, different types of sexual fetishes, how a person may come to have a fetish, and if they do and it's something that is intruding on their life, what can they do about it? So first I'm going to go over some of the research information that I have and just give you a background. And then I will go into my professional opinion as well as information I have gathered over the years. I've done at least 1,000 sex history surveys over time. And what I have found is that people who do have a fetish, the origin usually starts in the same place for many of those people. And I will go over that with you as well. So let's first figure out where the word fetish is derived from. So the overview is the word fetish derives from the French fetish, which comes from the Portuguese, which means spell. So the first idea of the fetish is that they believed it was a spell, which makes sense, which in turn derives from the Latin artificial and farce, to make. So a fetish is an object believed to have supernatural powers, or in particular, a man-made object that has powers over others. Essentially, fetishism is the attribution of inherent value or powers to the object. And it probably would have seemed that way a long time ago, because when people do have a sexual fetish, it really does take over an aspect of their sex life, and it almost seems like it's a spell that's been cast upon them, because the arousal comes from the object, or in order for them to get aroused, there has to be the object or the body part, which is actually called something else, but we'll kind of group it together right now. That turns them on. So they need that to get turned on. So now let me go over what the actual definition is in this day and age. So sexual fetishism, or erotic fetishism, is the sexual arousal a person receives from a physical object or from a specific situation. The object or situation of interest is called the fetish. The person who has a fetish for that object situation is the fetish. A sexual fetish may be regarded as an enhancing element to a romantic sexual relationship, achieved in ordinary ways, i.e., having a partner wear a particular garment, or as a medical disorder of sexual preference, if it causes significant psychological distress for the person or has detrimental effects on important areas of their life. So there's also another aspect of this, which is classified as having a fetish for a particular body part, and that's classified as partialism. And so a lot of people will say that they have a foot fetish, which is one of the most common fetishes, and that would be really categorized in this partialism because it is part of a body part. So it gets a little bit more complicated there. So let's talk about the psychological origins and the development. So this is what, quote unquote, they say could be the reason. And I don't necessarily agree with this 100%. I think there's some aspects of this that can be true, but I will go ahead and read you what the early psychologists assumed a fetish was. So early psychologists assumed that fetishism is being conditioned or imprinted as a result of a strong emotional, traumatic, or physical experience. Often these experiences were experienced in early childhood. For example, an individual has been physically abused, could either have a sexual obsession with intercourse, or they could be completely terrified by even the idea of being touched. It is assumed that those who have been sexually abused created an obsession with being touched or touching others, and possibly even abuse by abusing someone else. Physical factors like genetic disposition are another common possible explanation. So I would say that, yes, there could be some aspects of abuse, sexual abuse involved in a fetish, but that is not always the case. And in fact, for many of the people, it's not specifically an abuse situation. And so I'll get a little bit more into that. But I do find that there is a physical factor and there could be a genetic disposition. But I can't pinpoint what that is, but it seems that there might be some idea of hyperfocusing or some obsessing over a particular object that can be involved. I won't go into all of the older psychologists and what they had to say because I really don't think it applies today. So let's go into the modern theory and treatment. So psychologists and medical practitioners regard fetishism as normal variations of human sexuality. Even these orientations are the potential form of fetishism are usually considered unobjectable as long as all people involved feel comfortable. Only if the diagnostic criteria presented in detail below are met in the medical diagnosis of fetishism justified. The leading criterion is that a fetish is ill only if he or she suffers from the addiction, not simply because of the addiction itself. So I would say that is more in tune with what is really going on and what research has shown today. A diagnosis, and I'm going to get into that with you right now. According to the ICD-10-GM version of 2005, fetishism is the use of inanimate objects as a stimulus to achieve sexual arousal and satisfaction. In most cases, said object is required for sexual gratification. The corresponding ICD code for fetishism is F65.0. The diagnostic criteria for fetishism are as follows. So this would be what the diagnosis is. Unusual sexual fantasies, drives, or behaviors occur over a time span of at least 6 months. Sometimes unusual sexual fantasies occur and vanish by themselves. In this case, any medical treatment is not necessary. So that's really important to understand because that really is not a fetish. So if you're obsessing or fixated on something that is arousing and it's only arousing for a limited amount of time, then that would not be considered a fetish. It would just be something that is arousing for a particular amount of time. The other thing is the affected person, their object, or another person experience impairment or distress in multiple functional areas. So basically what they're saying is if it interferes with aspects of your life, such as work, such as you hurting yourself, hurting others, then that definitely would be a problem. And lastly, they talk about treatment, and there are 3 possible treatments of fetishism: cognitive behavioral therapy, psychoanalysis, or simply behavior subversion on proportional timing while not practicing any sexual activity for not activating the fetish. But I also think there's other treatments, which now I will go over some of my opinion on this. But I did want to give you kind of an overall view of what is out there. So what I have found is many times a fetish gets solidified around puberty. And so a person in childhood or up to puberty can have a fixation on something. And as I said before, it doesn't necessarily have to be that they were in an abusive situation. It could simply be that they witnessed something that turned them on, and it could be something around them. It could be something that they've seen. It could be a video they've watched. And what happens is they think about it over and over again, and when they go through puberty, there is the testosterone that imprints the mind, And now I'm mostly talking about men because it's a lot less likely that women have these fetishes, and more so the men do. And I think we really do need some more study with women. But I would say that women go through puberty too, and there are certain hormones that can also aid in kind of locking the fetish in. But women, I think it might be more imprinting when they were younger. And for them, I think abuse could play a bigger part in it for men. There's still some discussion open on that. But from what I've seen, that seems more typical. So it would be that, again, it really becomes solidified during puberty. And after puberty, the person would still continue to engage in thoughts about what turns them on. And it becomes a fetish when that thought is there for a long period of time. And they also need to be sexually aroused with that fetish around them. So they really would be involved in using it, or they would be involved in thinking about it. And so if you have a fetish where it works in your relationship and your significant other, your spouse is okay and they want to be involved in it, then it usually doesn't present a problem. But it can present a problem when a person either doesn't tell their partner that they have the fetish and they want to have it with them, and maybe their spouse or their partner doesn't want to do it or isn't turned on by it. That's where it can create a very difficult situation. The other problem is if somebody does have a fetish and they're not in a relationship and they're trying to get into a relationship and they're finding that they're not getting aroused by having normal sexual interaction, that can also create a problem because they're not able to have intimate relationships with somebody and the fetish is getting in the way. And of course, then there are the fetishes that are more dangerous, and those involve other people where the person is getting off on putting another person in a position where they become the object of their fetish. And this can go into somebody who's exposing themselves on the internet or out in public. It could be that they are interested in younger people, and that is a particular type of a fetish, or body parts. And so there's different aspects of sexual fetishes that can be problematic. And those are the ones that people really need to get help for and learn how to manage it, or to learn how to be aroused by something else. So this idea that it completely goes away, I'm not sure that I've seen that. I've seen that they're able to replace it with something that is more stimulating in their life, meaning that maybe they found something more arousing, or that they've really had to work on their behavior so that they spend less time focusing on the particular fetish and more time doing things in their life that they're passionate about, whether it's a hobby or exercise, religion, something creative. People have been able to replace or minimize fetishes and put in other aspects of their life that they're passionate about. But to think that someone can just eliminate it without additionally adding something in, it's very difficult to do. It really does take quite a bit of behavior that needs to be changed, and also responsibility, and realizing that if you have a fetish and it's causing a problem, that you do have to do something about it. It just isn't going to go away. So there's lots of different options and understanding of what it is. I hope that this video has shed some light on what a sexual fetish is, and that if you have one, that you will be able to, get the right information if you need help with it. So you can reach me at www.thehappyspouse.com, and I do take appointments, and I do also have an option to ask questions on my website for a small fee. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, share my videos, and leave your comment. As you know, I believe everyone deserves to have a healthy sex life, and so do you.